Hey everyone, welcome to the new Into the Ethereans Verse podcast. I'm Gyp and I'm here with JPN, and this is a new weekly podcast where we focus on the revolutionary ecosystem and protocol that's changing the game for Ethereum users and builders and transforming the notion of what it means to build real value on the Ethereum layer. So if you're curious about the latest developments in the EthOS universe, then you've come to the right place. We're thrilled that you're here with us on this journey while we document EthOS protocol's move into the adoption phase. That's a big one, huh, John?
It is.
So in each weekly episode, we'll be bringing you news and insights along with expert commentary and discussion straight from the Ethereum and Web3 space. We'll plan to have some cool guests on and things like that. And we'll be doing a deep dive into the cutting edge tech stack that is Ethereans OS and the groundbreaking vision that Ethereans Labs has created to allow users and builders to create real and lasting value on Ethereum. So, like I said, I'm Gyp, and I'm here with JPN. We're both team members from Ethereans Labs. How's it going, JPN?
Oh, it's going good, although probably not as good as your week.
Right? It's been a busy week. We have been out here at, ETH Denver. We've been here since Monday. Actually, a few guys from the Nerds delegation have been here since I think last Friday, in fact. So this is a pretty long event, and it's kind of scaled up as the week has gone by. Today was the main event. So the main event runs through March 2nd through the 5th. And I got to say, there was about a tenfold increase of the number of attendees today. So
I saw somewhere on Twitter that there were 15,000 people there for the main event. Yep. 15,000.
15,000. And I thought it was packed on Monday when there were about 1,000 to 1,500 people in the smaller venue. So I've been here since Monday. ATOX has been here since Sunday, and some of the other nerd guys have been here before that. We've been having some great conversations, shaking hands, introducing Ethereum's OS protocol to a number of different people, builders, just normal attendees, people who are curious about Web3. I mean, the spectrum of people who are attending it just runs the gamut. We had some really cool cards made up, some actionable cards with a QR code, and explains what Ethereum's OS is. And that's kind of a primer, and then we have a couple minute conversation with them, and try to explain the goals of the protocol and how it operates and things like that. And we've been making some good headway. So, like I said, it's been kind of scaling up every day. We've had it's the attendee number has been scaling up every day, and I'm super glad that we got here on Monday because there was about a 3-hour wait for registration today to get into the main event. Whereas all of us that came on Monday, we just got to flash our badge, go through the bag check, and then head into the main event. So, funny story, I was actually waiting in that main line, and I was like super worried because there were a bunch of people who wanted to get in there and talk to. And then someone's like, "Oh, hey, you already got your badge. What are you waiting in this line for?" And I was like, "Oh, really? Like, we can just go straight in?" They're like,
line then. Oh my goodness! I was
like, yes. Oh my god! And all the people were looking at me. They were very unhappy. So I think the turnout was very healthy and a lot more than what people were expecting, especially in the bear market. But and it's been a great week. We've had some really great conversations. And gathered a lot of interest in things like that. So I can only imagine what ETH Dubai is going to be like as we're sponsoring that event and sponsoring the party event and things like that. It's going to be a very, very exciting time along with Bittelberg.
The boat party on the pier, yeah.
Yeah, is that what it is? It's a boat party.
It's a boat party. I think it's March 15th, according to the flyers. So March 15th, Dubai time. We are going to be boat party on the pier, and I get my fun at an ETH conference, here in 2 weeks. So I can't be that jealous. Right?
Yeah, I'm sad. So far I'm scheduled not to go, but who knows? Maybe that'll change. So we'll see. I'll look into last minute flights. It sounds like a party that can't be missed. So what's going on in your world?
Oh, I've been following all the Twitter news over the last week or so, There's two real big things I want to get your take on here. First one is last week, Coinbase announced they're getting into the blockchain game more so than they already were. They were in the crypto game. Now they're in the blockchain game.
Yeah.
They're launching.
Are you talking about the Optimism deployment?
Yeah, they're launching. It's their own layer 2 built on the Optimism stack. And they're going to launch Base. It's going to be its own legitimate layer 2.
Right.
And sort of alongside that announcement, Optimism announced that rather than just being, a singular L2 going forward, they are adapting to the super chain, I think is what it is.
Yeah, I saw that. The one chain, the one L2 chain to unite them all, right? And thankfully, Toshi had the vision, back in the day to look at Optimism for deployment. And, pretty quickly, when I joined the team last spring, he said, Optimism is where it's going to be at. I've looked at all the technologies, and I think that's where adoption is going to happen on L2. And, here we are just almost about a year later, and sure enough, it's looking pretty healthy. I mean, we can't call the ball game yet, right?
Right.
But, I like where they're headed with things. Benji, who's a business development guy for Optimism, who I've worked very closely with in the past, he wrote a thread on Twitter this past week talking about, attestations, and you're going to be hearing that word a lot. And sure enough, throughout the conference, and you hear people talking about that. You hear little side conversations here and there, and talking about attestations and things like that. And I think that they're doing really good work. So I talked to the Polygon guys today at the Polygon booth, and they had something to say about that. So we got some nice swag from and talked to them, and I was into Polygon back in early 2019 and things like that. And, they're doing a great job too. Everybody who's moving the space forward, and really it's just incredible to see how many participants and attendees and booths. And I mean, the energy and the vibe here is just, you wouldn't know it was a bear market if it wasn't for the prices, right? I mean, you just see the smartest people just having, the most intelligent conversations about governance and quadratic voting and, all these different things. And it's just, the amount of brain power that's here right now is just incredible to see. And that's all on Ethereum and, to drive Ethereum forward. So very, very exciting times ahead. Definitely.
Well, and as a fellow US based user for crypto, what do you think about Coinbase, really putting some more skin in the game and not going the Binance route of like launching your own chain? They announced, Base is going to use Ethereum as gas. It is a full L2. It's going to look a lot like Optimism. They're not launching their own coin based on this, not their own gas or anything. They are going full Ethereum L2 all the way. And as a US based user, Coinbase is like the on-ramp in the States.
It is.
There might be some other ones, but really that's the one that everyone knows about. They're the ones who have users. They now have a wallet. They're going to have an L2. They have their exchange. What do you make of that? Do you think that Coinbase can onboard the US market?
Yeah, I certainly do. And, especially after, the last couple of months and everything that's happened in the space and kind of sort of a heavy-handed, kind of impulsive knee-jerk regulation stuff that's come out and kind of affected Coinbase. I love to see that kind of pivot, like, okay, this is how we're going to, to bring the space forward. And this is how we're going to continue to further drive adoption and to, beef up our customer base. So I think it's healthy for the space. I love to see it. When I saw someone post about it, I didn't know what base was. And I thought someone misspelled based. And I was like, wait, what were they trying to say based? And then I went and read the announcements and things like that. So, I think that, they're in a really difficult position given the lack of clarity on regulation, right, in the States, first and foremost, and in which direction they need to go and how they can serve their customers in the space best. And I think that they're not resting on their laurels. They're kind of like, okay, well, this is what we need to do, and this is how we're going to further push adoption. And I love to see it personally. So I think it's really exciting. I love that they're building on Optimism Stack. Their brand power and their reputation carries a lot of weight. So I think that, they're a trusted name in the space. And so, being a US entity and having to, back their assets with reserves at all times, things like that. I mean, naturally people are going to gravitate towards, using their technology, on Optimism Stack. So I think it's good. I think it's great news. How about you?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think going back to what you said about the regulatory clarity around the space, I think that's probably why they opted to go in a different direction than like Binance and the BNB chain. They didn't want to issue a token like that could, in some theoretical universe be like a security or something, or be viewed that way by the US government. They wanted to go in a way that they weren't issuing a security. And I think launching layer 2 is just a beautiful way of doing that. That gives you some control over the space. You can onboard your customers directly from CEX directly to the L2. You might even be able to get them to bypass L1. They've done a little bit of that with Optimism. You can already send stuff directly to Optimism. So I see that as the future. People are going to go, you can put your assets on Coinbase, and immediately if you want to use DeFi, well, all their stuff's going to plug right into Base. And they're going to have everything that you want over on the Base chain there. And you're not going to have to deal with, the high fees on Ethereum. Look at the security.
Right. Yep. I agree. And, you love to see it, native L2 and not having to worry about, security risk with bridges and things like that. So
yeah,
I think it's good to see. So,
I think it's really interesting.
Coinbase, but, and sometimes their motives were a little unclear, and, especially, some of the projects they list and things like that. And, it was just, just the big picture.
NFT marketplace.
Yeah, right. I don't think that's panning out, and so, I think that, kind of the winds are shifting direction a little bit, and I think that they're getting ahead of it, and I think this is a smart move for them.
Yeah, they obviously have some work to work on the development of this super chain with Optimism, but I think if there's going to be an entity or a company or something that's willing to help lead that charge and sort of move things in this decentralized direction for companies, I think Coinbase is the one to lead it for the US. Right. And I think this makes a lot of sense, and I'm pardon the pun, but I'm optimistic about this for the future.
Right. Nice. That's awesome.
We had one other big news story this week. It flew a little bit more under the radar. It was right at the end of last week, actually. But did you see the counter exploit hack that happened last week?
I didn't get to see it fully because I was traveling out here to Denver. Side note, make sure you buy your plane tickets well ahead of time so they're not $1,000 a pop,
I'm also going to Dubai. So.
Yeah, a little bit different than only 1,200 miles, But I know there's been some discussion about it in the EthOS Discord and the general, and I thought you brought up a really interesting point, about the multi-sig, and if a court can compel, right? For an upgradable contract like that.
Yeah, to get some context for everyone listening and watching, what happened here. A year ago, February 2nd of 2022, there was someone who exploited the wormhole bridge and made off with like $200 million of ETH. I think at the time it was even more than that. It was maybe double that even. Yeah. So this was a multi-hundreds of $million hack that occurred. The hacker then wasn't really able to cash out because this exploit happened on the blockchain. Everyone it was doxed. Those funds were doxed. They weren't able to cash out. So what they did instead, they deposited it into a vault and then borrowed DAI against the Ethereum they stole and used. I'm not sure. I think they used it for a bunch of different things, but they used the DAI. Yeah. Anyways, and everyone just sort of figured the funds were gone. No one did anything about it. And then end of last week, we get a news story that breaks. It says a group was able to go ahead and counter exploit and steal back all, at the time right now, $200 million worth of Ethereum. I think it was in a couple of different liquid staking derivatives.
The collateral.
Yeah. They stole the collateral back. They actually took control of the vaults, paid the loan back, and grabbed the collateral. Now, did you read it all about how this happened? It was actually kind of interesting.
No, I did read a little bit, but if you'd fill me in, that would be great.
So
it's pretty wild.
Yeah, the exploiter was using, I forget who actually controlled the vaults. It might have been Jump had the wormhole bridge.
Right.
I think these were ultimately Oasis, the company Oasis had the vaults or had control of them. And these were smart vaults as they were branding them.
Yep.
They were able to both take out more loan amounts as well as pay back collateral based on the debt ratio. So what has to happen for these smart vaults is the exploiter had to sign over the rights to basically be able to control some of the vault to another contract. And that contract was an upgradable proxy contract.
Yep.
And that was their thing. So by using these smart vaults and then enabling like the smart features of the vault to maintain certain collateral ratios, they signed over the permissions to this upgradable proxy contract. And I think it was February 25th was the day everything went down, or February 21st, somewhere right in there. Right. The group at Oasis used their multi-sig to upgrade the upgradable proxy contract to something that was designed by white hat hackers, and were able to take control of the vault, pay back the debt, and close the positions, getting the collateral out.
Wow. So that's a lot to unpack. Yeah. That is crazy.
Up until signing the transaction for the managing of the smart vault to this upgradable contract, the hacker had made off with the funds. He was totally like off the hook, had them. He couldn't really cash out of the ecosystem, but he had the funds on Ethereum.
Right.
By signing that transaction, he basically gave the rights to this upgradable contract. And turns out that's maybe not a great thing to do.
Right.
And I'm not sure on like all the technical details with the hack, but basically the reason that this really made a splash is back on February 21st, I want to say, a few days before the hack.
Yeah.
The group at Oasis was ordered by a court over in the UK to do whatever they could to get these funds back. So they were ordered by the court, and then when they were going through and upgrading the upgradable proxy contract, they actually had someone who was a court-appointed third party added to the Oasis multisig for like an hour and 50 minutes. And that was one of the signers who approved approved the transactions to upgrade this contract that allowed this to happen. So the reason this is a big deal is like a court ordered people who were in charge of a multisig to add someone the court appointed to the multisig, who then signed transactions that upgraded a contract that was this could have been any user's funds. They happen to be the exploiter's funds, but theoretically anyone else using these self-repaying vaults could have been targeted by this.
Exactly. What happens for the next time? And like you mentioned in the Discord server, right, in the thread there, it's the precedent, right? In this case, the intentions were good, and it this was, correcting a wrong, but, the precedent that it sets is very scary. You know what I mean? When you have these, centralized.
Yeah, what happens if you have someone who has debt and the court says, hey, you have to repay your debts. Let's go get the owners of the protocol over here, force them to sign stuff, upgrade their own contracts, and rug a user. Like, what do? You can't.
Right.
That's how it works now, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. And it's interesting that you mentioned that because, and sad to say, even this week at ETH Denver, I mean, we continue to see these tricky kind of, schemes of, well, this is how you can have this much protection, or, but still leading back to these centralized solutions, and hey, like if you're getting yourself into, custodial situation there or something, that's something that you desire, then, okay. But, if for these, protocols that are claiming decentralization or saying, this is the best solution we can provide for decentralization. I mean, it's, you continue to see these kind of like trying to think outside the box and keep the centralized element to it. And really the solution is just full decentralization, and to where, you don't have that ability. Right. I heard that a couple of times this week, and it was just, it's kind of head scratching after everything that we've gone through in the space over the last year. And, we continue, and of course that's the easy way out, right? It's more difficult, certainly it's more difficult, to design governance in a truly decentralized manner and things like that, and what Ethereans Labs and, EthOS protocol has. But, it's the long game, right? I mean, we're going to continue to see these kind of things, and these solutions that people thought that were safe, that, hey, you thought a court would never do this, and you thought that they would just think, oh, well, this is Web3 and blockchain and too complicated and those funds are gone. And like, nope. Like, we're gonna provide some, incentivizing, in the legal area, where if you don't do this, then you're going to jail or something like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So when you have,
I mean, this sets up like, if you're a founder of a protocol and can potentially access user funds, even if it requires, some big upgrade or multi-sigs or something, and you're like, oh, no one could possibly be forced to do this. Looks like you can now. Like you can be forced by a court to take any actions necessary to steal funds if you have access. And I think that's where like Ethereans Labs had this mindset even before this hack of like, hey, these upgradable proxy contracts and ever being able to gain access to user funds through like anything is a bad idea. Like it shouldn't exist. These should be weeded out. The protocol owners
should have doors.
Absolutely no way. Yeah. I mean, we did the same thing with like the iPhone for who knows how many years, and probably still are. The FBI wanted a backdoor into all the iPhones, and Apple was like, if we put a backdoor in, you're going to make us use it on everyone. And like, we don't want to do that. So it's like they took a stand, and I think it's worked to at least a large degree. I'm sure the FBI has their ways, they have their own engineers and coders and stuff, but Apple didn't like say, hey, we're going to make it really easy. Here's the backdoor. Here's the master key. They're like, no, you're going to have to work around us, and we're just going to keep fighting this for years. Yeah. Right. But it also makes it so that the FBI can't go tell Apple, hey, here's an iPhone, unlock it for us. Go. Right. They can say, we can't. We can't. Encrypted.
Right. Because it's a slippery slope, the reason of why you would go and do that. You know what I mean? And next thing you know, hey, there was a political statement made that we don't think is a fact, and you need to go and break in the back door, and you know what I mean? I mean, it's just a slippery slope, Yeah.
And the only safe way is to say we have no access. Figure it out yourself. Like, I think that's where the space is going to have to go for crypto. You're going to have to basically be able to look at your protocol and say, we have no way to access it. So if you give us a court order, we can stare you right back and say, no can do. Go
and compel the users or something. That's the only way that it can get done. You know what I mean?
And that protects you, because if they say do it at any cost possible, and you say, well, I don't want to, well, you're going to jail. If you say you can't, you have your legal defense there.
Exactly.
You're so clear, either and if they say do it and you end up giving in and you do it, well, then you lose trust with your users. It's like it's a lose-lose situation to be in a situation where you can can access the funds in any which way. So really,
and in this case, a whole segment like upgradable, smart contract. Who's ever going to use them again? I mean, they're dead in the water now. I mean, nobody will ever. Secure their funds.
They're a liability now. If you have an upgradable proxy contract, a judge can force you to upgrade that to arbitrary code almost.
Right.
I don't know if there's anything else. So like a multi-sig on...
Wasn't there a line of code added? I thought there was a line of code added or something like that.
Oh, there was
there was something.
Yeah. In the update, and I think the way some of the wording was...
Sorry. Yep.
The way some of the wording was from Oasis made it seem like they had a function in there where they could potentially like access funds under certain circumstances. And the idea was like, it was to protect users. Like if there was a fatal bug that was shown, they could use their backdoor access to protect people. But if you put a backdoor in, we all about good intentions and the path, or, we all know that saying. And you're right. I mean, it was, like you said, put in place with good intentions and for another use case scenario and things like that. And, where there's a will, there's a way. So, it kind of goes back to what we've talked about before in the ethos of EthOS, pardon the pun, right? And building, right? And what Toshi has always talked about with, building with zero security assumptions, right? And being able to have zero security assumptions and being able to really trust what you're building on, that it is actually a firmament and a foundation, and not that, it's going to change, next week or next month or next year or something like this. And that, you just, the proof is in the code, right. And so, it's, I think that, this, like you said, this is where it's going to go. Being, decentralization maximalists and building the protocol this way it's definitely the long game, right? Where everything else is, really flashy and things like that, yield and everything like that. But, we're playing the long game. And so, because, we know that's the only way. So. Yeah. And just to highlight, like the way Ethereans OS does upgrades where it's different than these upgradable proxy contracts is these upgradables, you sign away your rights as a user. You allow a contract that's just a proxy. It points to another contract. And you can force that to point to another contract. But you give your rights to this proxy that can point to various other contracts. That's how they make it upgradable. You give your rights to the proxy. Then the devs can upgrade that in the background, and you don't have to re-sign approvals because you approved a proxy instead of the actual contract for it.
Right.
With Ethereans OS, the way it's different in our organization is like when you go into the farming setup for Ethereans OS or like the dividends farm there, you're giving your rights to an actual contract, not the proxy here.
Not the proxy, right.
And if the protocol wants to upgrade it, what they do is the farming manager and the farming setup is a component, and at the root level can go ahead and say, all right, we'll swap the old farming setup for a new farming setup component. And if you want to go into the new farm, you have to re-sign a transaction that says, okay, I'm going to give my rights to this new contract.
Yep. Right.
So they're doing upgrades where it's this, it's the sub-DAO model. You have smaller individual components that you sign and can be swapped out. It's sort of like the modular phones they were talking about so long. Like if your one component is upgraded, you swap out the one component to a new component. But you have to like go through and reapprove that. But you know what you're signing. You're never signing this arbitrary contract that could change underneath
at any time.
You.
That's right. Yeah, get the rug pulled, and we've seen that. I mean, we've certainly, upgraded the farming contracts, I believe once, in between farming seasons. And, I think, have we seen that twice now? We may have seen that once only, but you're exactly right. So, it's a much smarter way, and it gives the users, control, and that's what it's all about. So.
You have to, design a component and then swap the component.
Right.
But your users are never at risk of signing something that can sort of change underneath them. And I think as a user, it's really important to be like, the thing that I signed is always going to be the thing I signed. I looked at it, I audited it, or somebody else audited it. I trust them. And you can go with that. You can never really audit a proxy contract because who knows what it's going to point at someday. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that's crazy. Yeah, I'm glad to get a more in-depth understanding of what happened there. Thanks for taking us through that. Yeah, scary stuff. So I think our way of doing things is going to be very soon. The popular model. So um,
We have the way here. We have the way to do this in a way that doesn't put protocol owners at risk. It doesn't put users at risk. It's
exactly.
It's more costly. Developmentally, it takes a little bit more, but we're working to bring that barrier down. We have the infrastructure now on how you can go ahead and do this. We have factory contracts. We're putting this in place so that other people can build on this and use the better way that exists for both users and developers. Like,
mm-hmm.
This is what it should be. So
we've done a lot of talking, about we had some covenant stickers as well, and to farm safely and things like that. There was a Pepe one, and then there was one with one of the farming graphics from the covenants video. So it was pretty cool. So we've had some really cool conversations and explaining to people what safer DeFi and safe farming is and things like that with EthOS farming contracts and covenants. So it's been really fun this week, and going into those conversations and having very clear and easy to understand tech of why it provides safety for users and things like that, and why it's better. I mean, it just makes those conversations go so much easier, and it's just a matter of getting the word out and things like that. So, which we're coming up on, so that's pretty great. So, speaking of ETH Denver, so I think we're going to have ATOX on from the Nerds delegation. The leader of the Nerds delegation is kind of the special guest for this week. We'll have to do it at a different time because I think he's in the afternoon session right now for the Code Camp. He is, of course, Nerd delegation is building the scaffold.eth, the forkable front end for covenants. And so we're working to get that into the competition for this week. So that's going to be really cool. But yeah, it's been a great intro episode, and I look forward to doing this week in and week out. And that's the thing. We're going to be extremely consistent, and love having these conversations and highlighting how our solutions can solve the pain points in the space right now, and why it's a better solution. So.
Oh yeah, we'll be here every week. And